Starting the podcast was actually an idea that I had many years ago. A couple of years ago, I started thinking that, we need conversations that are geared more towards the overall well-being.
3, 2, 1, action.
This thought came to my mind because being a musician and being in the creative industry for so many years, in the spaces of music, production, short stories, performance, just creating, just the creative space. I really felt like so many of us as artists didn't know who to be. Our identity was in our gift, it was in what people said about us. It was in the applause, like when you release a hit song and then there's so much adrenaline and then you don't know when the next hit song, you look for a collabo, some work, don't work. And I just felt like as creatives, we needed a solid ground.
One of the things I'd like us to really cover on today's podcast, the Art, Heart and Heart podcast, is identity, and more specifically, a term that is commonly used today is called imposter syndrome.
I think it's a struggle for identity when you're not sure of certain of who you are, at the core of who you are. And it's a journey. It's always a journey of discovering these things. So you go into spaces and you feel like, woof, I don't belong here. Or you create content that's larger than you. Suddenly, larger than even your mindset or your, it goes, and then you now are invited into that space. You feel like, whoa, where did that come from? Because there's what you do and who you are. So the idea is to find out who you are and then figure out what you need to do.
It's finding myself and finding who I am. It's a struggle because yes, you create content and so what, yeah, you're putting out videos, they're getting views, but then what, know? And it's like, okay, why am I here? What am I supposed to do? Is this it for me?
Yeah.
It's something.
And so that was how the podcast idea was birthed. But finally, this year, we were able to start the podcast.
Welcome to the Art, Heart and Heart podcast. The podcast will represent all your ideas and notions of how you view art and the areas and spaces that it has also hurt you. Yes? That's what we're discussing. So please, welcome. Feel this is a safe space. Yes. Sure? Yes, it is. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Jumpsuit is one time.
Jumpsuit, it was funny. Okay, the washroom.
The science.
The whole thing.
And what contributed to this is my own personal healing journey. I went through a very difficult time as a person. And I still had some support at the beginning, and I came up with the draft because I knew that even for my own healing, I needed to do this podcast. And so I had lost people in my life. I had gone through a very difficult space and losing friends, losing people who are very close to me, and just feeling alone and destitute and wondering, where do I start and who am I now? I think in the season I'm in, especially as I am renewing my faith and getting to know myself better and getting to understand, what path I should be taking, and just really showing up as a child of God. Yeah. So I did my first therapy class. I think I told you. Did I tell you? And the therapist asked me who I am. So I talked about a lot of things. I'm a musician, Nini. And he said, "You said what you do." Now, who are you? You know, and of course now I like how Scholar introduced, because it starts with I'm a child of God, right? So showing up as a child of God, understanding that there's a childlike nature within you, and you don't need to show up like up in arms, right? And understanding the friendships that speak to you based on who you are, right?
So it's really about trying to understand who are you beyond how you appear.
Yeah.
And the music space has been marred by deception, you know, because you're like, hey, I'm saying I get my dame. And it's all also tied into the fact that we don't know who we are.
Yeah.
And as a culture, I know we've been socialized to belong, you know. I need to belong. I need to have a charmer. I need to have a what? I need to have 10 friends in order to be valid. I need to excuse. You can be fast, you need to be your own friend. You know, this is something. Yeah, this is something very deep for me, because I had to unlearn it. And let me tell you, please don't learn it. Because when you unlearn it, you'll feel like you're dying. It's so painful. Yeah. Because you're realizing, I thought I needed people. Number one, you first need to discover what you're meant to be doing with your life and yourself.
Yeah.
And you need to know about yourself. You need to understand, okay, what are some of my belief systems? Where did I pick them from? Was it in school? Was it my family? Was it, you know? And all these things ultimately drive the careers and the spaces that we walk into and we choose. And people don't want to get into these conversations. Lakini, the bad thing about that is that ultimately people are in a lot of pain.
Yeah.
And that's why now the heights of depression, because it's an emptiness.
Yeah.
You meet someone who's rich, but they are searching for fulfillment.
Yeah.
And people will say that's an old person thing. No. Your life can be valuable.
And so as I continued to do psychology, because I enrolled as a student of psychology, I realized that one of the proven ways of helping us heal as individuals is through healing others.
Yeah.
And so
as I
doing the
put this-
podcast, talking to my co-host and having guests come in, just literally created room for difficult conversations, especially on identity and purpose, which is really who am I, whose am I, and why am I here? And so those are the questions that the podcast directs.
In this season, I am telling myself I'm a student. And that faithfulness of trusting and believing that this season, even if it's a crisis season, because the world is in crisis mode, FYI, yeah? So your season, your crisis, how am I managing, you know? How am I marrying who I am with this season? When I get, what am I offloading?
Yeah.
What am I dropping? Yeah, the goal is to travel light, unpack. What do I need to unpack? You see, I'm bald.
Yeah, and you look beautiful.
Thank you.
You look very nice.
This is unpacking.
Yes.
You know, and I like how you talk about it, because it's so symbolic. And when we started this topic and we're talking about identity, a lot of women, if we were to look into culture, religion, you know, our identities have been robbed.
Yeah. I'm of the opinion right now women are being liberated.
Yes.
Only some are just now misusing the
Liberation.
We are not in that space anymore where you can go blaming people like, hey, wanawake tumefinyiliwa, tumefinyiliwa. Right now we are, okay, I'm not speaking for all, but we know we are a bit empowered right now.
Yes.
But in terms of identity, it's like, you see, first, who am I? Mimi ni nani? Do I know myself? Am I a child of God?
Yes.
Am I Mrs. So-and-so? Am I Mama Jabali? Am I Sister Michelle? Mimi ni granddaughter of Martha? Who am I?
Yes.
And by the time I'm asking myself these questions, and I think anyone who's feeling lost in space should be able to ask themselves who they are.
Yeah.
Once you're able to answer that question, then it becomes easier.